So I know it's late, but maybe we can be together for 5 or 8 minutes to have some question with these fantastic people. So.
Great presentations, everyone. Thank you very much. I just have a question for the last presenter. Very, very interesting. I just came from working at an HVTN site in Atlanta where we were doing the Discover study and several other vaccine trials. I'm wondering if your clinic had considered kind of the ethical considerations around even considering a Descovy-Truvada trial, given that we have such, great evidence around the safety of Truvada, that the kind of implications of proving that this works means that we get into a situation where we're now having to pay another patent for 10 years. And you can that the evidence of that in the US is so clear. Like as soon as you get your next and best 1 pill a day, then all the physicians switch over to that, and the pharmaceutical companies can make another 10 or 15 years of patents. So it'd be interesting if that was a discussion that your clinic had in considering that trial.
Actually, yes, we've been talking about that a lot. A microbiologist at the McGill University Health Center said to me, and I'm not going to name the individual, but said to me about a month ago that Gilead has done a very good job at trashing its drug. Mm-hmm. And it's fascinating because the British Medical Journal just suggested that pregnant women be offered an alternative in combination therapies for combination with Truvada. So all this stuff about kidney function, bone density, and pregnant women arrives just as the patent expires. And the reason why I had the slides up about side effects is, in fact, the side effects are actually quite low. And if you do as the presenter had said in Paris this summer, a urine dipstick test, and you analyze blood for I think it's urea and creatinine, you can catch the cases, and when you catch them and you stop them in time, people don't develop kidney function. And personally, I see Descovy as being a fallback drug for the people who do. But it's clear Gilead doesn't see it that way. And so that's really a fascinating question. If you developed a vaccine that was 97% efficacious, you might develop one more, but you wouldn't develop 10. And so for me, the question is, do we already have the nearly perfect vaccine? And we shouldn't necessarily be doing more research for new options, and we should just be rolling it out. But there's a clear momentum at Gilead and in other companies. They want to do the research for the long-term injectables. They want to do the morning after pill, and they argue that it's in people's best interest to put in place multiple options for combination prevention. So that's the debate, and I don't have an answer for it, but I tend to think, frankly, I'd be quite happy with just Truvada in Montreal.
Thank you, David. Another.
Thank you very much for all the presentations this morning. I'm really tall for this. Thank you for coming out and putting up with our English-French translation. Just an observation and a suggestion to our first presenter, Frédérick. C'est correct?
Yeah.
Frédérick?
Yeah.
As I was watching your slides and your presentation, the presentation seemed to jump from the term substance user, substance abuser. And as someone who works with very stigmatized, marginalized men who are using substances, the term abuser is very stigmatizing and offensive. So I would suggest substance user, or people who use substances, as opposed to substance abusers in your terminology. That's all.
Yeah, I agree with you, but it's substance abuse and not substance abuser, but I always wrote substance users, and I understand your point of view, and I agree totally. But sorry if you felt...
I assumed it was a translation thing, so that's just...
Yeah.
Thank you.
It's more, but substance abuse is more about the, I've wrote it like more about the problematic than the person, yeah.
Thank you. So, yes, maybe the last question? Okay.
Good morning, I'm Tom McCauley from Positive Living Society. I actually have two questions, so I'll say them all at the same time so they can be made. First is to Frédérick on crystal meth. It seemed that your cohort was just identified as a gay population, and I'm wondering if your study teased out the use amongst HIV-positive gay men versus gay men in general. I say this because from personal experience, crystal meth came, either it was by design or by coincidence, came along at a time when a cohort of men, including myself, had stable income through disability programs, time on our hands because we weren't working, still sexually active, and it was a perfect storm of use. And I myself fell into a 15-year addiction that I'm now clean from. But I wonder if there is any information on just the cohort of HIV-positive men. Second question to the gentleman from Ottawa. I noticed that that your presentation had addictions and substance use separate from mental illness. Out here, in a lot of our language, substance use is included under mental illness, and I'm wondering if there was any, and certainly after addiction, and this again, of personal experience, once you become clean, there are several, perhaps more emotional, but issues of mental stress that we go through. And also part of that is, I come from I as well am an older gay gentleman. I've been positive for 32 years. I was told I was going to die 2 years after I diagnosed. I didn't. It took me till 50 to realize that. And another 3 years to realize that the issue was about believing in a future and having goals. And once I had that experience, I was quitting crystal meth was easy because I had something to live for. So I think there's a cohort of men that also have this feeling of nothing left to live for, not because it's a sad depression thing, it was just the fact of our lives.
Yeah. If in the cohort, the majority of the men that answered the survey and came to the focus group were HIV positive guy. And this is what we saw in different other studies, that crystal meth's use is more prevalent in HIV positive guy. I suspect that serophobia is a real factor there that contribute to that factors, and the intersectionality of different stigma. HIV living guy have more stigma than a gay guy can have, and this contributes to crystal meth use.
And just very quickly on the other, I agree with you, and I think that also why largely during the last years we've moved addictions from physical health to mental health, because it's really what the reality or the experiences are. I think in those graphics, which was more on the research project, that we wanted to separate it, because there's some research that shows on this endemics, but also to make sure that we were having, that we knew where the problem or the barriers for access are, so to separate them, because to know, and we found it in some of them, like in Ottawa, there's nothing specific on addiction. So had we put it together with mental health, we wouldn't have noticed. We would say, oh, there's mental health services, but we wouldn't know that the issue or the need or the gap is specifically on substance use and support around that. So I think it's mostly, but I totally agree, addictions and mental health are together.
Great. So thank you to our presenters, our fabulous moderator, Joanne, Réjean, for joining us this morning. Thank you in particular for switching back and forth between French and English. Thank you to the audience for bearing with us around the translation. This is our first year incorporating French, so we're learning, and we'll try to do better next year. Neil has a brief announcement,
And then I'm just going to update you on the timetable for the day. Obviously, we're running a bit late, so we're going to adjust some things. So go ahead, Neil.
So thank you very much. I'm doing my ACT UP impersonation here and coming up to the front of the stage to steal the mic. I'm the chair of Positive Link BC, what Tom just talked about, but I'm also on the steering committee for the Canadian Coalition to Reform HIV Criminalization. And I just want everybody to know there's a community consensus statement that's been developed and we'll be sending out. So what we need you to do, if you're involved in any kind of civil society organization, any kind of organization, read this and sign on to it. So get your EDs, get your board of directors, get your CEOs to sign on to this very important thing. 2 years ago, we did the scientific statement. Now we have a community statement out there, so we need sign on. And right now, it's only for organizations, but once we build that, we're hoping to maybe do an e-petition to Parliament for all people. So thank you, and I have some flyers here for you.